If someone left you a mansion worth millions, would you still take it, if they warned you to never open the last door? Daniel Carter ignored that warning. Before sunrise, he would discover why his family had been guarding that door for over 200 years. The breathing stopped. A child's voice whispered into his ear. "You came back." Daniel screamed. The flashlight suddenly turned on again. Nothing was there. He was completely alone. Or so he thought. High above him, on the second floor, a rocking chair began moving by itself. Back and forth. Back and forth. Without a sound. Daniel slowly backed toward the front entrance. But the front door had disappeared. Only a blank wall remained. The mansion had sealed him inside. Then, somewhere deep beneath the floorboards, an ancient bell rang once. A deep metallic sound echoed through the house. Every portrait on the walls turned their heads toward the same hallway. The hallway that ended with the brick wall. And somewhere beyond those bricks, something knocked. Knock. 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 Daniel didn't know it yet. But the real nightmare had only just begun. Daniel's heart pounded as the knocking echoed through the mansion. Knock. 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 The sound came from behind the brick wall at the end of the hallway. Every instinct told him to run. But there was nowhere to run. The front door had vanished. Taking a deep breath, Daniel walked toward the wall. The air grew colder with every step. His flashlight dimmed until its beam was barely visible. When he reached the bricks, he noticed something unusual. One brick was different. It was smooth, black, and covered with strange symbols. As soon as Daniel touched it, the entire wall trembled. Dust filled the hallway. The brick slowly slid apart with a deafening rumble, revealing a narrow passage hidden inside the wall. A freezing wind rushed out. It smelled of damp earth, and something rotten. Daniel hesitated. Then, from somewhere behind him, he heard footsteps. Slow. Heavy. Someone, or something, was walking toward him. He turned his flashlight around. The hallway was empty. But the footsteps continued. Closer. Closer. With no other choice, Daniel stepped into the hidden passage. The opening slammed shut behind him. Darkness swallowed everything. Only his flashlight remained. The last door. The house that refused to DM. The storm began just after sunset. Thunder rolled across the mountains like an angry beast awakening from centuries of sleep. Rain poured from the black sky, washing away the narrow dirt road that led to the forgotten village of Black Hollow. Daniel Carter tightened his grip on the steering wheel. His GPS had stopped working nearly an hour ago. His phone displayed one message over and over again. No signal. Perfect, he whispered. He had traveled hundreds of miles after receiving a mysterious letter from a lawyer. The letter claimed that his late grandfather, whom Daniel had never met, had left him an old mansion hidden deep inside Black Hollow. Daniel almost ignored the letter. But curiosity won. The mansion was supposedly worth millions. That was enough reason to drive into the middle of nowhere. Lightning split the sky. For just a second, Daniel saw it. A gigantic Victorian mansion standing alone on top of a hill. Its broken windows looked like empty eyes. Its tall towers disappeared into the storm clouds. The house looked less like a home, and more like something waiting for him. As Daniel stepped out of his car, the cold wind wrapped around him. The iron gate slowly creaked open by itself. He froze. I didn't touch it. The sound echoed through the empty valley. No birds. No insects. Nothing. Only silence. A silence so complete it almost hurt his ears. He walked toward the mansion. Each step felt heavier than the last. The front door was already open. Inside, darkness swallowed everything. Daniel switched on his flashlight. Dust floated through the air like tiny ghosts. Portraits covered the walls. Every person in every painting seemed to be staring directly at him. Then, his flashlight flickered. One portrait changed. An old woman. She had been smiling. Now, she wasn't. The hidden passage. Daniel blinked. The smile returned. He laughed nervously. I'm imagining things. He continued deeper inside. The mansion was enormous. There were dozens of rooms. A grand staircase twisted upward into darkness. Cobwebs covered every corner. Furniture sat exactly where someone had left it decades ago. As if time had simply stopped. Then Daniel noticed something strange. Every hallway ended with doors. Except one. At the very end of the longest corridor, there was only a solid brick wall. Yet according to the mansion's blueprint folded inside the inheritance papers, there should have been one final room. One final door. A voice suddenly whispered, "Don't open it." Daniel spun around. Nobody. Only darkness. His heartbeat raced. Who's there? No answer. Just another whisper. Closer this time. Leave. The flashlight died. Everything went black. Daniel stood frozen. He could hear breathing. Not his own. Someone else's. Slow. Heavy. Standing only inches away. He reached into the darkness, searching desperately for the wall. Instead, his fingers touched cold skin. They reached a forgotten library hidden beneath the mansion. Thousands of ancient books covered the shelves. Most had rotted away. But one large journal rested on a stone table. Its leather cover carried a familiar name. Edward Carter. Daniel's grandfather. With trembling hands, he opened it. The first page read, "If you are reading this, I am already dead. The mansion has chosen you." Daniel swallowed hard. The next pages revealed the terrible truth. Nearly 200 years earlier, miners digging beneath Black Hollow had discovered a massive stone doorway deep underground. Believing treasure lay beyond it, they broke the seal. Instead, they released something that had never belonged in the world. Within weeks, people began disappearing. Some were found wandering the forest without memories. Others were never found at all. The survivors spoke of a shadow with burning red eyes. A creature that fed on fear. Unable to destroy it, the villagers trapped it behind the ancient wooden door using an old ritual. Each generation, one member of the Carter family became its keeper. Their only duty: never let the last door open. Edward Carter had guarded it for 40 years. But before his death, the seals had begun to fail. Daniel closed the journal. "So, this is why he left me the house." Emily nodded. "He hoped you'd finish what he couldn't." Suddenly, the library lights flickered. Every candle went out at once. A whisper filled the darkness. "You know the truth now." Daniel slowly looked toward the doorway. A tall shadow stood there. Its shape was almost human. Almost. Its arms were far too long. Its fingers ended in claws. Its glowing red eyes pierced the darkness. But the most terrifying part: it had no face. Only endless blackness. The Hollow One had somehow crossed the first seal. It smiled without a mouth. "I don't need the door anymore." The creature took one slow step into the library. Then another. The temperature dropped so low that frost spread across the walls. Emily screamed. "Run!" Daniel grabbed the journal and sprinted through the maze of underground tunnels. Behind them echoed the creature's footsteps. Slow. Patient. as if it already knew they couldn't escape. Then, somewhere ahead in the darkness, Daniel saw an old iron gate. Carved into its center was a single sentence. "Only the true keeper may pass." As Daniel reached for the gate, the Hollow One whispered from just behind him. "Open it, and you'll learn why your grandfather feared the last door more than he feared me." Daniel's hand trembled as it touched the cold iron gate. The words carved into the metal began to glow. "Only the true keeper may pass." A sharp pain shot through his palm. He cried out as a single drop of blood fell onto the ancient lock. With a loud metallic click, the gate slowly opened. Emily grabbed his arm. "Hurry!" The moment they stepped through, the gate slammed shut behind them. For a brief second, everything was silent. Then lined with ancient stone walls. Strange symbols had been carved into them centuries ago. Some looked like eyes. Others looked like doors. After several minutes of walking, Daniel reached a circular chamber. In its center stood an enormous wooden door unlike anything he had ever seen. It was nearly 12 feet tall. Its black surface was covered with hundreds of deep claw marks. Across the center, someone had carved 3 chilling words. "Do not open." Before Daniel could move, a soft voice echoed through the chamber. "You finally came." A little girl appeared in the shadows. She wore an old white dress stained with dirt. Her long black hair covered most of her face. She couldn't have been older than 10. "My name is Emily," she said quietly. "You have to leave before it wakes up." Daniel stared at her. "Who are you? How did you get here?" Emily slowly raised her head. Her eyes were completely black. "I've been here for 70 years. A loud bang shook the chamber. The giant door vibrated. Something enormous struck it from the other side. Boom! Dust rained from the ceiling. Emily's expression turned to terror. "It's trying to get out." Another impact. Boom! The wooden door cracked. Daniel took a step backward. "What is behind that door?" Emily whispered. "Your grandfather locked it away." Daniel froze. "My grandfather?" "He made a promise," Emily said. "He became its keeper. When he died, the house called the next blood relative." Daniel realized why he had inherited the mansion. It wasn't an inheritance. It was a summons. Another thunderous crash echoed through the chamber. This time, a long crack split the center of the ancient door. From inside the darkness beyond, 2 glowing red eyes slowly opened. The creature had awakened. The keeper's secret. The glowing red eyes never blinked. They stared through the widening crack in the ancient door, burning like 2 coals in the darkness. Daniel couldn't move. His body felt frozen. The creature hadn't even escaped. Yet its presence alone made the air impossibly heavy. Emily grabbed his arm. "Don't look into its eyes." Daniel quickly turned away. The moment he did, a deep, inhuman laugh echoed from behind the door. It wasn't loud. It was calm. Almost amused. "Another Carter." The voice whispered. "I've waited for you." Daniel's blood ran cold. "How does it know my name?" Emily's face turned pale. "It knows every keeper." Another violent crash shook the chamber. Boom! A second crack spread across the ancient wood. Black smoke seeped through the opening, twisting across the floor like living snakes. Wherever the smoke touched the stone, it turned black and crumbled into dust. Daniel stepped back. "What is that thing?" Emily closed her eyes. "No one knows its real name anymore. The villagers called it the Hollow One. They believed it wasn't a ghost. It was something much older." Emily led Daniel through another narrow tunnel behind the chamber. After several minutes, Hollow One let out a roar so deep that the walls shook. The creature had reached the gate, but it couldn't cross. Not yet. The tunnel led them into a vast underground chamber. Daniel raised his flashlight. His breath caught in his throat. Thousands of candles floated in the darkness. Each candle burned with a pale blue flame. Below them stood hundreds of old stone statues. Every statue wore an expression of terror. Some looked as though they had been screaming when they turned to stone. At the center of the chamber stood a circular altar. Resting on it was a black wooden box. Unlike everything else in the room, it looked untouched by time. Emily whispered, "The keeper's chest." Daniel stepped closer. The lid slowly opened on its own. Inside were three objects. An old silver key. A worn leather journal. A strange crystal glowing with white light. Daniel picked up the journal. The first page was written by his grandfather. "If you have reached this chamber, then the Hollow One is already free. There is only one way to stop it. The last door must never be destroyed, but it can be sealed again. The keeper must willingly sacrifice what he fears losing most." Daniel frowned. "What does that mean?" Emily looked away. "I don't know." A sudden scream echoed through the chamber. One by one, the stone statues began to move. Their heads slowly turned toward Daniel. Cracks spread across their bodies. Stone hands reached forward. The statues were waking up. Daniel grabbed the silver key and crystal. "Run!" The chamber erupted into chaos. The statues chased them, their heavy footsteps shaking the ground. They rushed through another tunnel as pieces of rock crashed from the ceiling. Just before the exit, Daniel looked back. Every statue suddenly stopped. They bowed their heads. Not to him, but to something behind him. A familiar voice echoed through the darkness. "You cannot hide forever." The Hollow One had found another way in. Its shadow stretched across the floor, growing longer and darker until it surrounded the chamber. The blue candle flames turned blood red. The creature smiled. "You found the key. It belongs to me." Before Daniel could react, the crystal in his hand burst into brilliant white light. The light forced the Hollow One backward. For the first time, the monster screamed in pain. Emily stared at the crystal. "That's why your grandfather hid it. It's the only thing that can weaken him." Its voice echoed like thunder. "The prison is broken. The world belongs to me." It raised one enormous claw. The ceiling collapsed. Massive stones crashed all around them. Daniel grabbed Emily's hand and ran toward the ancient chamber of the last door. Behind them, the Hollow One followed, tearing through stone walls as if they were made of paper. At last, they reached the colossal wooden door. It hung open. Inside was only endless darkness. Cold air poured from the opening. Thousands of distant whispers filled the cavern. The crystal in Daniel's hand shattered into 1,000 pieces. The final barrier was gone. The Hollow One smiled. "No more chains. No more keepers. I am free." Daniel tightened his grip on the silver key. He remembered his grandfather's final words. "A true keeper does not guard the door because he is fearless. He guards it because someone must." Daniel stepped toward the open doorway. The Hollow One lunged, and the ancient chamber exploded with blinding white light. The keeper of the last door. A blinding white light filled the ancient chamber. The Hollow One let out a deafening roar as the light forced it backward. The walls trembled, and centuries-old stones crashed from the ceiling. Daniel held the silver key tightly in one hand while gripping the old journal in the other. His grandfather's final words echoed in his mind. "A true keeper does not fight for himself. He fights for everyone beyond the door." Daniel looked at Emily. Tears streamed down her face. "You know what you have to do," she whispered. He nodded. "I do." The last door stood wide open. Beyond it was not another room. It was an endless void, a place where no light, no time, and no life existed. Thousands of ghostly voices cried out from the darkness. Some begged for help. Others warned him to stay away. The Hollow One laughed. "You cannot imprison me again. There is no keeper strong enough." Daniel stepped toward the doorway. "I don't have to be stronger than you. I just have to close the door." The creature charged. The ground exploded beneath its massive feet. Its claws sliced through the air, barely missing Daniel. Emily picked up the broken crystal pieces. As she held them together, they began to glow faintly. "The light," she shouted. "It still remembers." She threw the fragments into the air. They merged into a brilliant beam that struck the Hollow One in the chest. The monster screamed in agony. For the first time in centuries, it was vulnerable. Daniel ran. He reached the center of the doorway and thrust the silver key into an ancient lock hidden within the frame. The lock turned halfway. Nothing happened. Then he remembered the words from the Book of Keepers. The keeper must willingly remain behind the door. Daniel understood. The ritual demanded a life. Not a victim. A volunteer. He looked back at Emily. She smiled sadly. "My father kept the darkness away for 70 years. You can finish what he started." Daniel took one last deep. The light faded. The crystal dimmed. A thin crack appeared across its surface. Daniel's heart sank. It won't last much longer. The Hollow One laughed from the shadows. "Good. Because when the crystal breaks, there will be nothing left between your world and mine." The final key. The crack in the crystal spread slowly. A thin beam of white light escaped through it before fading into darkness. Daniel stared at the crystal in horror. "It can't break, not now." Emily shook her head. "It has protected the last door for generations. Its power is almost gone." The Hollow One's laughter echoed through the underground chamber. "You cannot stop what has already begun." The shadows around them twisted into long, claw-like hands that reached across the floor. Daniel and Emily ran through a narrow tunnel, their footsteps echoing in the darkness. Behind them, the Hollow One didn't chase them. It simply walked. Slowly. Patiently. As if it already knew how the story would end. The tunnel opened into a circular room unlike any Daniel had seen before. The walls were covered with hundreds of old portraits. Every painting showed a member of the Carter family. Some wore old military uniforms. Some wore clothes from centuries ago. Each held the same object. A silver key. At the center of the room stood a stone pedestal. There was a single keyhole. Daniel took out the silver key from the keeper's chest. As he placed it into the lock, the entire room began to tremble. The pedestal slowly split open. Inside lay a weathered leather book wrapped in iron chains. Its title was burned into the cover. The Book of Keepers. Daniel opened it carefully. The final pages had been written by his grandfather. "Daniel, if you are reading this, then the Hollow One is free. There is only one way to imprison it again. The last door can only be sealed by the blood of a willing keeper. But blood alone is not enough. The keeper must choose to remain behind the door, forever." Daniel felt the world stop. "Forever?" Emily lowered her eyes. "My grandfather, my father, every keeper made the same choice." Daniel looked at her in shock. "What do you mean?" Tears filled Emily's black eyes. "I was the daughter of the first keeper. My father sealed the Hollow One 70 years ago. I waited for him to come back. He never did." Daniel finally understood. Emily wasn't alive. She had been a spirit all along, trapped inside the mansion, waiting for the next keeper. A tear rolled down her cheek. "I'm so tired of waiting." A deafening roar shook the chamber. The walls cracked. Portraits fell to the floor. The Hollow One stepped into the room. It was no longer just a shadow. Its towering body was wrapped in darkness, with long skeletal arms and glowing crimson eyes. Breath. He stepped through the last door. Instantly, icy darkness surrounded him. The Hollow One roared and lunged after him. The moment the creature crossed the threshold, Daniel turned the key. Outside the doorway, Emily pulled the massive door with all her strength. The ancient wood groaned. Slowly, inch by inch, the last door began to close. The Hollow One clawed desperately at the opening. Its terrifying screams shook the entire mansion. "No. I will return." The gap grew smaller. Smaller. Until... boom! The last door slammed shut. A brilliant golden seal spread across its surface. The silver key melted into the lock. Then... silence. The darkness disappeared. The shaking stopped. The curse was broken. Morning sunlight poured through the broken windows of the mansion. For the first time in 200 years, birds sang over Black Hollow. The portraits on the walls smiled peacefully before fading into dust. The spirits trapped inside the house slowly vanished into the light. Emily looked at the sealed door one final time. "Thank you," she whispered. Her body became surrounded by a soft white glow. She smiled. Then she disappeared. Finally, she was free. Months later, the abandoned mansion was demolished. Workers found nothing beneath its foundation. No underground tunnels. No chamber. No last door. It was as if the place had never existed. Only one thing remained. A weathered leather journal. The final page had not been there before. Written in fresh ink were the words, "The keeper never dies. He simply waits until the door is needed again." Epilogue. On a cold autumn night, a young historian named Sarah Brooks received an unexpected package. Inside was a rusty silver key. Along with it was a single note. It read, "If this key has found you, the last door has begun to open again." Sarah looked up. Someone knocked 3 times on her apartment door. Knock. 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 She walked toward it. Slowly reached for the handle. And the lights went out. The end.